What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined by my co-host,
Ricky DeCosta.
Tell the folks what time it is.
Run it back.
Time to run it back. Beautiful people, you already know what I'm going to say. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We're looking for those 5-star reviews on all our major platforms, okay?
Episode 32.
Episode
right?
32, baby.
3-2.
3-2. Special shout out. I'm going to get you guys at the end, too. Talk about you guys a little bit because you're very passionate about your team and fan base. You OKC fans, man. Keep it coming. I love the banter. Had me up at before 7 a.m. this morning.
Listen, here's the thing.
To a bunch of comments.
But here's the thing, right? Like we said, we love the smoke, right? We like the comments.
Absolutely. They were great.
But we're about to find out, though, right? NBA playoffs is around the corner.
We are.
Right? I think you guys are in, the third slot right now.
Yep.
And you're sniffing around Kevin Durant and the Suns, the Pelicans, and Zion.
There's a few different matchups.
So,
right now, I believe it would be the Pelicans.
Right? It would be the Pelicans right now. In a couple days, we're going to find out what that matchup is. And if they go out in the first round, what does that mean?
Just saying, we got to keep it a buck, you know, and like you brought that energy beforehand, so we'll have to see how the playoff series.
So just show up in those comments if
course.
they lose.
I told them, I said, listen.
Right? Is that fair?
I said this to them. I said, listen, if they make a deep run, come back and talk to me too as well, man. I'll be the first one to admit that I was
don't even
wrong.
think they got to make a deep run. If they make it out of the first round, then you should still come back because
of course.
I don't know if they'll make it that far.
I'm all for the interaction, man. But we start this one on I'll be honest. Oh, please like, comment, and subscribe, guys.
Thank you, production.
Right? Yes, thank you, production, for the reminder. And also just a little, if you want to get a reminder anytime one of our video drops, just click that little bell icon right there. We come up with a lot of different ones. Obviously, we have the long formatted one, but then we also get like some 10-minute ones. And our boy Shawnee in production is crushing it with those reels. A lot of people love them.
Yeah, the feedback, production is getting. So real shout out to Shawnee. Right?
Yeah, shout out
doing
to
his
him.
thing.
I mean, even though he's a Jets fan, we won't hold that against him, obviously.
Well, I think he's real excited right now with Stephon Diggs going to Houston Texans.
We will get to that.
Hey, you started.
We will get to that. But the breaking news of the day, okay? I'm sitting in my class. I'm writing out what we're going to talk about tonight. And a kid raises his hand and he says, Mr. Mallory, O.J. Simpson died. I said, what? He said, O.J. Simpson died. And I said, oh, my God. I said, I've got to talk about that on the show. Now.
Do you want to pour out some O.J.?
It's not. Oh, my God.
Got that one from production.
Yes, you did. You did. It was a good joke, though. This is a tough one to go over, and I'll tell you why, because O.J. Simpson is obviously such a polarizing figure. Some of you younger people who might not know, maybe you know kind of just somewhat a little bit of a backstory, but O.J. Simpson, an extremely famous football player, okay, back for the Buffalo Bills, and I want to say
USC?
the mid to late 70s. Yes, he was a USC Trojan. First running back ever actually to rush for 2,000 yards all time. If you were ranking running backs all time, I think it's hard not to have O.J. Simpson in your top 10. There's many people that would even have him in their top 5. Now, the thing about O.J. too is he was more than just a football player. There's a lot of people who, if you're not as informed with history, I'm going to go a little bit nerdy here for a second, but I am a history teacher, okay? Those of us who are not quite, adept with all the history of this country, there have obviously been a lot of racial strife, trials, and tribulations through the years. O.J. Simpson was a guy who kind of was one of the first African Americans who truly rose to prominence in American culture across the board. He was culture icon.
Yeah.
He was liked by whites. He was liked by blacks. He was a universally loved character. He was one of the first African Americans to kind of make that crossover into corporate culture. Mm-hmm. He appeared on a Hertz commercial. He was in
movies too, right?
Yes, he was in multiple Naked Gun movies, along with a few others too as well. So you're talking about a true star that kind of transcended American culture at a time where racial barriers and inequalities and things of that nature were still looming very large in the country.
Yeah.
His time was just after the Civil Rights Movement, but to say that blacks and whites were living in a perfect, atmosphere is definitely not, giving it some truth. There was still a lot of tension. He kind of transcended that. So you fast forward to 1994, I believe it is. Obviously, everybody knows about the famous chase on the highway, news stations all
Bronco,
over.
right?
The Bronco,
White
the
Bronco.
white Ford Bronco. It is notorious and famous. They cut baseball games. They were cutting all different sports to go to this chase. Every single channel on television was covering this. Finally, the Bronco stops. It's caught. Okay. OJ's brought into custody. Why? Okay. It was a very famous murder trial involving his wife, Nicole Brown, and then a close friend of hers. I apologize right now. The name is actually escaping me. I will try and see production. Can you give me a name on the other guy? So Nicole Brown was OJ Simpson's wife at the time, and the other person that was involved in the murder, because 2 people were murdered on the night. So murder case. Okay. Setting up that whole chase. OJ goes to trial. Probably in the 90s, I would say that was arguably the most famous trial if you're going to a culture / type of icon. Okay. It permeated a lot of the world. And this is not me coming. First and foremost, I want to say this. Okay. I'm not an OJ apologist. I'm not like an OJ fan. Okay. If you want my honest opinion, looking at all the facts and evidence and what I've studied, yes, I do in fact believe that he was guilty of the crime. Okay. Now, Ron Coleman. Okay. I apologize. Goldman, I apologize. So it was Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman were the 2 people that were murdered on this night, okay? First and foremost, hearts and prayers will always go out to the family. The scene was awful, okay? People, though, who are not familiar with the overall evidence and the surroundings around the trial, again, one of the biggest trials of the century still to this date. So big, in fact, that they made a 30 for 30 special detailing and covering it all on ESPN. I think it was a 6 or 7 episode special.
OJ Made in America, right?
OJ Made in America, exactly. And again, that title, great title too, because it does so much to kind of show you like the character of OJ, you know, like just everything and why he was a guy that could be made in America. But again, my personal feelings on the case alone, OJ Simpson, your personal feelings aside on him regardless, he does have his family, okay? He does have multiple children, okay? They are still living in the world, and they've had to deal with kind of the legacy of their father all throughout their lives. So the one thing I'll say to them, you know, is heart and condolences out to them, because regardless of how they might feel personally, I'm always going to sit there and at least say, you lost a father, so my heart goes out to you. I'm sure some of them had somewhat of positive relationships with him up until this point. As far as some of the commentary on the subject at large, this is something that I'm just going to say. If you don't know a lot about the trial and kind of what was going on in the country at the time, I would advise you, before kind of making all these other kind of flippant statements, listen, you are entitled to your personal beliefs about OJ and what you think about him as a person, okay? I certainly have mine. I'm sure others do as well, okay? But the trial itself and the outcome of the trial details something much bigger and problems and issues that were, you know, surfacing in America at that time. As you remember at the time, I want to say maybe a year or 2 prior, it was very close in proximity to the time the OJ case took place. But the Rodney King beating happened too as well. Numerous police officers, obviously, it's caught on video. You can go on YouTube and look it up. Basically beat the living hell out of Rodney King, okay? They were put on trial. They were found and acquitted. This was one of many kind of perceived injustices by the African-American community in which police treated an African-American suspect poorly, okay? They didn't murder Rodney King, but they beat him up pretty badly. If you go to years earlier, okay, look up an Emmett Till incident. That was another case, okay, where some whites had killed a black boy for simply speaking to a white woman inside of a shop, okay? The trial took place down the South, okay? We obviously know kind of how the South operated at that time. If you have somewhat a vague understanding of history, okay? They were also found not guilty too as well in a Southern court. So it kind of it set up a lot of a lot of different things were going on that kind of detailed or showed the injustices from for the African American community in regards to dealing with law enforcement. And LA, okay, the LA riots was one of the most polarizing times. Again, if you've never seen the movie Straight Outta Compton, they also go into great level of depth and detail as to, I mean, you guys, they didn't just make up that song about the police for no reason. Go watch the movie, look at some of their accounts and stories. They had some not pleasant interactions with police at the time, and that was kind of a theme of African Americans. The OJ trial kind of came to a head. Now, again, he was found not guilty, okay, in the criminal court, okay? Now, there were civil trials that were also dealt with on the Goldman side of the family, and he was found guilty for a majority of the, financial damages relative to the crime. So it's interesting how not guilty in one, guilty in like another, okay? The criminal and civil courts are different. Again, I think anybody who paid attention to the trial knows the famous, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. But the biggest thing I'm going to say about this at large, okay, is some of the comments where people say things in relation to race and the verdict of the outcome. I will repeat, please go watch OJ Made in America, okay? I'm not telling you in any way, shape, or form to empathize or feel bad for OJ Simpson. What I am trying to illuminate you on is you need to understand how a lot of African Americans felt about law and order and the criminal justice system at large at that time. And it's documented, and numerous jurors are interviewed. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I really recommend strong. It's one of the best 30 for 30s ever made. Go out and watch it. But I think if you watch it, some people who are talking about it's just about race, first of all, if you've never had to deal with that issue yourself, I think it's easier to say, why does everything have to be about race, when it's never something that you've had to necessarily deal with in your life. But the larger part is many jurors come out and they spoke about their feelings on the case at large. The evidence that was presented, whether they thought OJ was guilty or not, but a larger message they were kind of trying to send to, and I'm talking more the African-American community and the African-Americans that were involved in that trial. I think what they were trying to do is send a larger message about the miscalculation of justice in America, and in their eyes and in their view, how they felt there was somewhat of a two-tiered justice system, that African-Americans were not being treated the same way by the legal system as the rest of the country, okay, and especially, obviously, whites. And again, I am not trying to alienate people from our broadcast. I'm not trying to make this a black or a white thing. I'm just simply stating, please, for your own edification and just information on the process, to understand why that trial really broke the way it did. Go watch it. I think you'll really be surprised and you'll learn a lot. But that's kind of like my 2 cents on this whole thing, okay? At the end of the day, there are kids that lost a father still. You know, if they had a positive relationship with them, I feel for them. But OJ is obviously a very polarizing figure, because it's almost like he had two completely different, distinct halves of his life. There was the star, the movie guy, the commercials, the African-American that transcended culture, okay, that could fit in with the whites. And then there was the aftermath of the trial and how everybody viewed OJ, and he was never viewed in the same way again. So that's kind of my piece on this, but what are your kind of like some of your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think this is such a sensitive topic, right? Because he is so polarizing, right? And being a guy from the Caribbean island, right? It's one love, right? Love all parties, love black, white, blue. All up and down, yeah. But I'm
from mixed descent, man. So I love everybody too as well. I hear you.
To summarize some of the things that you're saying, right? Basically, a lot led up, right, to that injustices, right?
Sure.
And so then, right, the jury of his peers said, you know what, there's some potential circumstantial evidence, right? So,
sure.
Here's someone
little
overall,
of this is our turn, kind of.
Right. But again, I think a part of it is, he was someone that was loved by many. And
absolutely.
So,
across races, like you were talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to give him an opportunity to say, listen, maybe we didn't get it right before, but, here's a situation that, we're going to, try to, not make up for anything, but see if there's a situation that, we can, maybe act a little differently.
Sure.
So, I think all of it is tough, right? Because especially when you talk about losing the life of anyone, right? That's always difficult. In him passing, the people that died at the time.
Sure.
So that's, really tough to deal with overall. And, but from a culture standpoint and impact standpoint, I think of things like, Johnny Cochran was, really took off right from that moment,
sure.
from that trial.
Rob Kardashian and the Kardashian family.
Family, right? So from I think from just like a sports, a culture, a history standpoint, when you just, take a step back and look at the ripple effects of things that have happened from that case, I think it really left a massive impact. Whether you believe he did it, whether you believe he didn't, right? That's to each individual's opinion. But his life literally left an impact right across this world in our history. Again, if you talk about the 90s, right, you're going to talk about OJ in one form or fashion.
Where were you on such and such a day? There's a 30 for 30 about that day too in and of itself. Just that one day. So.
And again, to go back to the sports side of things, he was a phenomenal athlete.
Just a stud.
Right?
I think he's a Heisman Trophy winner at USC
Heisman
too
Trophy
as well.
winner, exactly. And so...
The guy was a star among stars. I mean, he was a true star.
Listen, let him rest in peace. And, for everyone that has opinion on that subject, I respect everyone's opinion. And, like I said, we'll make no light or pun or joke or anything like that. Like I said, it's just, it's a moment in all of our history.
It affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
And, let him rest in peace. He died of cancer, right? And, cancer affects so many people, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think we all in his life can find good and bad throughout it. And hopefully, from this point forward, right, everyone can, move on a little bit and have some sort of, learning experience from his time.
Yeah. But I'll just repeat again. Please, I advise you, if you didn't know a lot about this, the trial at large, go watch OJ Made in America. First of all, it's a phenomenal documentary, but it does such a good job of just illustrating the racial tension of the time in those areas and then just the country at large. Okay. But, you wanted to talk about this next topic. You were extremely
lighter
excited. Lighter note. We're going to get back into the sports stuff.
But it's still a little tense, though.
It's tense for sure because it affects two teams in very different ways. Blockbuster trade, okay? Sending one Stephon Diggs to the Texans. I mean, the Texans right now are they are like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he first hit the shores of America. They are 7 suits rolled, man. They are all dialed in. They are ready to make their dream happen this coming year.
The Texans are playing chess, and everyone else is playing checkers, right? Because not only did they trade for Stephon Diggs, they traded a 2025 second rounder pick,
okay, and then a 6th rounder for this year,
and then I think
5th or 6th,
there was like a swap, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They reworked his contract. He had 3 years left on his contract. They reworked his contract and gave him a $3 million bonus. And this is the last year of that contract, right? So now they're going to get the best version of Stephon Diggs.
Because he wants to go get paid by somebody.
He wants to,
exactly. And this could probably be one of his last paychecks.
This is his last time getting the bag.
31 years old right now. So.
But this is why they're playing chess.
Okay.
If remember, they traded a 2nd round pick.
Sure.
If Stephon Diggs leaves
they get the pick.
and signs with another team, they get a compensatory 3rd round pick.
So it's almost like giving up. I mean, again, outside of the pick from this year, it's almost like you could give up nothing.
So they're shooting their shot. Let's go win the Super Bowl right now, right here, with Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins. Right? And remember, they went and got Joe Mixon in the backfield.
They got Mixon. They still got the young kid Pierce, too, as well, so you can do a little dual back sets.
Dual back. They had the defensive rookie of the year.
Yes.
Right?
Will Anderson.
They got Stingley.
Brought Danielle Hunter over. Stingley's a very tough cornerback. Yeah, this team is...
Right? They're loaded. So tell me they're not...
This team's coming to Vegas to play for house money, man. They're trying to take the casino.
Tell me they're not the San Francisco of Texas right now.
Well, again, this kind of goes to something that you and I talked about a couple weeks ago. The model now kind of for building your team, obviously the Chiefs are in a little bit of a different stage. They've now paid their quarterback. They've committed to him over a 10-year contract. But if you have a young quarterback and he hits in that rookie year... I love what the Texans are doing because this is how you got to do it. He's on a rookie controllable contract. You are never going to have more flexibility and opportunity to add big level impact players on and obviously high contracts than you can when a quarterback is on his rookie deal.
But
it's the 49ers, but I would say this. And again, I'm not trying to throw any shade at Brock Purdy because I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. I think C.J. Stroud has more upside.
100%. Listen, that's obvious.
Again, that's not me trying to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form.
I think, right, and again, here's the further chess, right, over checkers.
Sure.
They looked at the consequences, right, the suffering of the Buffalo Bills.
Sure.
Right? The Texans, right, are now the old Buffalo Bills, but with better weapons. Mm-hmm. Think about it. They had Gabe Davis. They had Stephon Diggs, right? They had Knox.
Yep. Kincaid.
Right? Now they have Kincaid, right, on the rookie deal. They had a strong offensive line, a killer defense, Von Miller, right? Tre'Davious White, right? They had all these phenomenal players, right? And they made it to the AFC Championship game.
Also the tight end, is it Schultz? Dalton Schultz, too, as well. So, I mean, they got dudes.
But here's what they did. They
One
said,
of the best
you know
lines
what?
in the league, too.
But they didn't tie up with these long contracts. If I'm not mistaken, Danielle Hunter, they gave him $50 million over 2-3 years.
2 or 3, yeah,
right?
it's not a lot.
Stephon Diggs, you know what?
Within the
we
window.
don't want to be tied up for you for 3 years because we're going to have to give Stroud
It's
the bag.
all within this
so
little
here
window.
you go. You know what? You're getting paid 20. We're going to give you 23.
Yep.
We want your best right here, right now. We're going to shoot our shot to take down the Kansas City Chiefs.
So it lines up more or less with what you're talking about, this little 2 or 3 year window you have where you still don't have to go and pay the quarterback.
Exactly.
Right? Set up these contracts to attack within that window before you have to go and make more long-term
Because remember,
financial
when
decisions.
they give CJ the bag, they're going to have to give Will Anderson the bag.
So CJ and Will Anderson will get paid the same year, and then
Before that is Stingley.
1 year before that is Stingley, and then it's also going to be, I believe, again, see how things shape out. Nico Collins will be up for a contract at some point too. I think he's either the same year as Stingley or maybe a year before, because I think he just finished his 2nd year in the league.
Gotcha.
Okay, so he should be coming up on one too as well.
All right, now let's talk about the Buffalo Bills for a second.
Okay,
right? Because I am.
Well, hold on. Before we do that, Texans right now. Where would you have them ranked
Second best
in
team.
the Pantheon?
Second best team. Second best team in the AFC. Behind Kansas City.
So we're
Chiefs.
giving Kansas
Hands
City
down.
the benefit of the doubt. Here's what I will say.
Hands down, the Houston Texans, as of this moment right here, right now, are the second best team in the AFC. Let's run it down. Kansas City won, hands down, no questions asked.
Totally.
Who's number 2? Do you want to say
in the AFC?
Burrow and the Bengals? Well, guess what? T. Higgins is tagged.
Sure.
He's not happy right now.
Yep.
Right?
But he'll play if he has to.
They've lost defensive talent. They lost Mixon. And remember this, because I said this with Stephon Diggs, right? Last year, Joe Mixon took a pay cut to stay on the team.
And then ended up
1 year
anyway.
later, they cut him.
Yeah.
Right? Got rid of him. No, they ended up trading him to
They traded
the
him to Texans.
Right?
They brought in, what's his name? They brought in Zach Moss from the Colts.
It doesn't matter.
No,
right?
I'm just
But
saying.
at the end of the day, right, it's a
And the
locker
young kid,
room.
Chase
It's supposed to be a family, right? There are principles, and it was clear that
You and I always have this
Joe
little-
Mixon
It's family and business.
It is family and business, but you know what? It was both.
Sure.
He's a family man that took a pay cut for the team,
Sure.
took the hometown discount, the hometown discount, and then the team got rid of him. Right? For no clear better option.
Yeah.
Right? So now
we're going to see. Did have a very good season last year filling in for Stewart, but I hear you.
Right?
I hear you.
But remember, that all of a sudden is going to ring in the locker room.
Sure.
Guess what? Jamar Chase is going to come up. Guess what he's not going to do? He's not going to take no discount.
No,
he
he's
wants to be
getting
the
max money.
highest paid
He's getting max
receiver,
money.
and he's going to hold out for it. I get it, Joey
They're going to pay
B.
him. They're going to pay him.
But guess
That's
what?
why they
They're
tagged T.
And they're going to fall behind. They better trade T. Higgins. If not, they're in trouble. So to me, they're not the second best team. Do you want to say the Baltimore Ravens that just lost their whole defensive staff?
They got some things to figure out,
Lost
for sure.
Odell, right? Lost, if I'm not mistaken, 2 offensive linemen, right? Lost Javale Clowney, right, on the defensive line.
Sure.
So they've lost so much.
Patrick Queen, too,
right?
as well.
Thank
they
you.
lost
There
guys.
you go, right?
Members
So,
of the coaching staff.
Again, you can't say they're the clear number 2 team. Who else you got? Right? You're not going to say the Jags.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go a step further, okay? I would go so far as to say they might be the second best team in the NFL right now. Now, again,
I won't
you're
say
saying
that.
AFC.
I won't say
okay.
that. I'm going to respect the
So you're gonna say
49ers.
that. Okay,
right?
that's fair.
I think the Eagles are going to have something to say about that, even though I don't think they're the second best team, but their roster is loaded. We'll have that
I think the
conversation
Texans on
another
paper
day.
are more talented than the Eagles. That's my opinion.
We
right
can
now.
have that debate, but the Texans are, and then here's
I think them and the 49ers is extremely close. And like I said to you in our text, I think the difference is quarterback. I think that's the difference. I do.
But again, they play in the AFC, right? So there's some challenges there.
It's definitely a tougher conference. And that division itself is getting much better.
100%. Here's why I am pissed at the Buffalo Bills, right? And again, let me say I told you so. I told you there was issues with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, and now he's gone, right? So I told you so, America.
I will give you the credit for that. You did say that.
I
you were
also
saying that
said
midway through the season.
Right, because everybody said I was a Josh Allen hater. I also said the Buffalo Bills were failing Josh Allen. How in the world have they set him up for success? They don't even have a receiver that has caught had a 1,000-yard receiving.
Don't sleep on my guy Khalil Shakir though. That dude can ball. I don't know if he's a number one.
Yeah,
he
can ball when there's Stephon Diggs on your team.
He can ball.
So what is the Buffalo Bills going to do? Run the ball 40 times a game and think you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes? You're going to beat the Ravens, the Steelers?
Maybe they're going to try to Build more out of the tight ends,
The
though?
Buffalo Bills will not even win their division.
Whoa.
The Buffalo Bills won't even get
Shawnee,
9
production's very
wins.
very happy to hear
Hear me
that.
clearly. The
Very happy.
The Buffalo Bills will not have 9 wins this upcoming season.
Whoa. It's a hot take if I've ever heard one.
First.
I'm not going to say that.
They lost half of their defensive staff. They lost 6 of their captains.
Yep. But their defense was banged up last year, too, and they still were really good. Like, that's the one thing. They have a good defensive coach.
So here's why the Texans learned from the Bills' mistake.
Yep.
They kept the guys too long. Right? What did the Kansas City Chiefs do? They paid their...
this is also a product of the Von Miller contract coming back to bite them in the ass.
Again, old knee injury, overpaid for him.
You can't sink a 6-year... And I love Von Miller. I think Von Miller's a fantastic player. One of the greatest defensive players.
But they have to overpay for him to steal him away from the Rams.
Can't pay a guy who's 30-plus on a 6-year max contract. It's just... It's bad business.
But remember, the Kansas...
They were going for it in that time. They were willing to pay the aftermath.
But Kansas City, what did they do? They got younger.
They did.
Right? They got younger and
controllable
competed.
Contracts.
They paid their offensive players. What are the Texans doing? Right? They're paying their offensive players. They're young on defense. Right? So they have the Kansas City recipe. Right? And they still have flexibility. They gave Hunter a 2-year deal. They didn't give him a 6-year deal, a 4-year deal. Right? And he still got paid like $48-49 million. So it's not like he took that much of a pay cut.
He was well compensated. The guy had 16.5 sacks last year.
So listen, the Texans right now are killing it. And then, okay, why am I upset? I am upset because the Bills traded him within the AFC. You should have sent him to the NFC.
Sounded like a lot of other teams. It sounded like they explored a lot of other teams and they just weren't getting the Bills. The Texans were the only one. Interest, I'm sorry.
I'm sure, well, you'd have to figure out the money, but I'm sure he would have went to Dallas to play with his brother.
But so here's the only thing I'll say about, but what would Dallas have been willing to give up for him? Like, we all know Jerry's pretty stingy, too, when it comes to deals
Jerry
like that.
said he was all in, right?
What has he done to in any way embody or show that he's all in? Dallas hasn't done anything this year. And we'll talk about Dallas later in the show.
But again, so like I said, the Bills are failing Josh Allen right now.
Sure.
And listen, you want another hot take? This will be the last season for McDermott as a coach. And the Buffalo Bills are going to go get...
That, I think, could be a little bit more likely.
Are going to go get Bill Belichick.
Whoa. A lot of hot takes here.
Save it.
So,
because I'm going to be like I told you so again.
As long as you have Josh Allen at the quarterback position, he's still the best quarterback in that division. Fair? Is that the best quarterback in the division?
Absolutely.
Okay. And listen, that's not to throw any shade towards Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to take the
100%.
I'm going to take the young in his prime quarterback.
Josh Allen is the best quarterback. The Jets have the best defense. The Miami Dolphins have the best offense.
Yeah, they definitely have the most potent offense on paper. And then obviously just based on last season. So I'm there with you. The one thing I'll say why I'm not going to go all doom and gloom on the Bills. They weren't using Stephon Diggs for a significant portion of the last part of that season, and they still found a way to win
But
games.
he was a threat. So
That's fair.
all of a sudden, they didn't have 8-man box.
Sure.
Now that he's gone, there's going to be an 8-man box. You're not going to run the ball 35 times a game.
What I think, though, is I think they're going to try to somewhat rebrand their offense. Now, again, you were very outspoken on the level of impact that Joe Brady, the new OC, had on the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen's ability to somewhat cut down on his erratic play. Okay, so this is now year 2. Brady and Allen have a little bit more of an understanding with each other. I could see them trying to go a little bit more combination of running the ball, but also
with what weapon? Again, is it the New York Giants?
I think they're going to go to a much more tight end heavy type approach in attack, where they try to focus on intermediate runs and attacking more the middle of the field.
So they're going to
still have that big animal scrambling.
So they're going to run and block, but nobody's.
I think you'll see Josh Allen run the ball
right in an offensive league. So then you're saying he's going to get hurt.
And I think they'll go and draft a receiver.
So you're going to trust a rookie wide receiver to take you to the Super Bowl?
Listen.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Realize this, that whole Diggs thing, right? And the pick that they ended up giving up. You know who they would have gotten if they had stuck with that pick? They would have had Jefferson, right? So all I'm saying is this is a very rich class of wide receivers coming out of this draft.
Time out.
So if you do your homework,
no. Make sure you give Stephon Diggs the respect he deserved. Josh Allen was not Josh Allen until Stephon Diggs show up. So let's see what type of quarterback he is when Diggs is gone.
So I'll say that without, again, but he wasn't using him a lot too, and he still had good numbers last year. But what I'll say is I'll partway agree with you. Let's meet in the middle. I'll say between Dable and Stephon Diggs. Because when Dable was there as the OC, you could watch Allen's first 2 years, the erratic play, a lot of turnovers. Once Dable got there to be his OC, he significantly cut down on the turnovers and he was less erratic with his play.
Best
you
connection
saw much more
in league.
consistency. But that is all the time we have for segment number 1. But folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to run it back on segment number 2. What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined, of course, by my co-host, Ricky DaCosta, and we are here to run it back on segment number 2 here. All right, so first off, let's recap. March Madness has officially come to an end. Folks, we're in April now, too, all right? But the 2 national championships were decided on the men's and women's side. First, let's go over to the women's because that was the one that was catching all the notoriety, all the attention. South Carolina defeats Iowa 87-75. So first off, I mean, I know we will talk about Caitlin Clark, but I mean, shout out to this team completing
perfect season.
You know, the perfect season, undefeated season. Guys, you were a college athlete. I was obviously a college athlete too as well. At the Division I level, in any sport, to go undefeated, I mean, it is extremely, extremely difficult, especially when you play teams multiple times within a year, within your conference teams, coaches, they know each other, they know your schemes, and, you know, just like kind of what you like to do, your nuances so well. It is so hard to beat teams multiple times. So to go undefeated all the way and win a national championship, that is awesome. My hat's off to the Gamecocks. All right, that's a heck of a season for you guys. I think that's the first undefeated season in South Carolina women's basketball history.
Okay.
Not that I don't think they're known as like a perennial powerhouse. I think they're good, but I don't think they're like the level.
Well, they
of
got 3
UConn,
national champions,
history.
3 national championships now under Dawn Staley.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay. Yeah. Shout out to Coach Staley too as well, who was awesome in multiple regards. Obviously, you know, utmost respect to you for going and winning a national title, but she made sure to go out there and give Caitlin Clark her flowers too as well. Yeah. What Caitlin Clark has done for the women's game, bringing more eyeballs and attention to the screen. We'll talk a little bit about like some of the jealousy and I guess that it's kind of promoting in some others too as well. But listen, Caitlin Clark to me is, I don't think she should be looked at as like now she can't be in the pantheon of all-time great college basketball players just because she didn't win a big one. If you want to make your criteria, she can't be considered the greatest because she didn't win. That's fair. That's fine. I get it. We do a lot of that in the pros too.
We've
as well,
had this conversation.
right?
You can't be the greatest if you got no rings, okay?
But you can be one of the all-time greats not winning a ring.
You
Barkley,
could be one of the most influential, right? But you can't be the greatest.
At your respective position. But at the same time, it's like if we're gonna debate back and forth on a criteria like that, like you're not gonna sit here and tell me that Draymond Green is better than Charles Barkley, right? Like you're not gonna make a ludicrous statement like that.
I don't know
I'm
why
not gonna catch you on air saying that, right?
I don't know why you would make that comparison. What I simply
because they're both power forwards.
Yeah, but one has championships, the other one doesn't, right? Draymond Green will be a top 50 player of all time.
I'm just going to get you on the record here right now because I want a lot of NBA heads. There's a lot of NBA heads and people that be paying attention. Who is a better basketball player, Charles Barkley or Draymond Green?
I think they both had a great impact.
What are you, running for office here, man? This ain't politics. Just give us an answer.
Draymond Green has a better legacy than Charles Barkley, period.
Who is the better basketball player, Charles Barkley or Draymond Green?
Draymond Green.
Oh my God.
I said it. Draymond Green.
It's just silly.
4 NBA championships, multiple defensive
on
players
the backs of the
year.
greatest shooting backcourt in the history of the NBA.
Could they
Charles Barkley won an MVP when Michael Jordan was at his height.
I said this before. You cannot tell the history of football without Eli Manning because he beat Tom Brady twice, right? Well, guess what?
He ain't better than Brady, though.
Listen, Stephen Curry has not won a championship without Draymond Green.
Okay.
Period.
So.
Period.
Remember the year that Steph and Clay both got hurt? What was the Warriors' record that year?
Probably.
They were in the lottery. They got the first overall pick, but your boy Draymond was the best player on the team that year. You tell me the time that Charles Barkley was the best player on his team, and they ended up in the lottery the following year.
Listen.
Come on, man.
Is Charles Barkley a more skilled athlete?
Charles Barkley is a better basketball player than Draymond Green.
He is a more skilled athlete.
Yo, you're going to get crushed on these comments by like some of the classic NBA fans.
Remember, now, again, we're talking about passing. We're talking about rebounding. We're talking about defense. Basketball is more than just scoring the ball. You know that, right?
I do understand.
And how many?
Barkley's a better rebounder too.
How many championships does Barkley have?
0.
Right? Aren't they? They're both going to be top 50 players of all time, right?
Oh, okay. I'm going to use your logic against you now. So Michael Jordan's not the greatest NBA player of all time. Robert Horry's the greatest NBA player of all time. Starting power forward for 7 NBA title teams. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
Championships matter.
They do, but they can't be the end-all, be-all, especially when when you're the third best player on a championship team as opposed to the best player on a finals team.
I'm going to say this right now. When you go to the Hall of Fame,
yes,
right, you got a room full of people that almost made it, right? Sure. Charles Barkley is in the almost made it.
Sure.
Draymond Green in the made it.
Oh, my God.
Right? Period.
I cannot believe what I'm hearing.
You have to separate at some point. He has 4.
Okay.
Barkley.
So all the stats.
0.
Just what it goes into being a basketball player.
And time out.
None of that matters.
Wait. Didn't Charles Barkley play with Hakeem Olajuwon?
Towards the end of his career.
What does it matter?
Towards the end of his career.
So he played with another superstar.
We're going to end this right now. It's really simple. Who was Draymond's best player he ever played with during his NBA championships? That should be easy for you, right?
Curry.
Okay. Who was Charles Barkley's best player that he played with?
Olajuwon.
No, I'm sorry. In his prime.
Now you're qualifying the question? I just gave you the answer. Get out of here.
In his prime.
Get out of here. Come on, man.
In his prime. Because Olajuwon, and Clyde were all so old at that point.
Again, you realize this conversation started because we're talking about Caitlyn. And at the end of the day, I will repeat my argument. You cannot be the greatest without any rings.
I'm going to settle this.
Without any rings.
I agree with you. But to say that Draymond Green is greater than Charles Barkley, that might be the most asinine statement from a basketball fan I have ever heard.
One guy is in the room of have-nots, and the other guy is in the room of greats.
Yes.
Period.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay, so folks.
And he doesn't have one.
He's got 4. I'm going to make this really simple. Go and do the research on them as players of themselves. Don't worry, I've already done this, okay? Look them up from a statistical comparison, and then take in mind, Charles Barkley was the best player on all of his teams during his prime, okay? That's what he did.
Caitlyn Clark was the best player and has 0 championships.
Draymond Green was the 3rd best player on his own team. Okay? Now all I'm going to ask you is simple poll. I want you guys to answer back on this. Who is the greater NBA player all time? Charles Barkley or Draymond Green?
And who is going to be in the higher level of the freaking NBA Hall of Fame? It's not going to be Charles Barkley.
What does that mean?
Okay, it's levels of greatness.
Yes.
Right? They're both in the Hall of Fame. And Charles Barkley's on the first floor.
Sure.
First floor. No NBA championships, but you left a great impact.
So
Draymond Green.
Ready?
Draymond Green.
I can't wait to destroy this argument with this next
I already know
where
you're going.
I've already destroyed it before.
You have
basically,
not.
By your logic, Derek Fisher is a greater point guard all time than Chris Paul. The defense rests. Caitlyn Clark. Congratulations on a fantastic college career. Can't wait to see what she does in the WNBA. She's got nothing to be ashamed of just because she didn't win a title.
Why are you so salty about championships and rings?
It's not about
I thought you should have. Is it because you love LeBron and he doesn't have more than MJ? What do you have
First of all, I'm an MJ guy. I'm an MJ guy. Just because I can sit there and debate you on both sides of it.
No, because you sound like a hater is what you sound like, right?
No, I'm a truth teller. Saying Draymond Green is better than Charles Barkley is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
There's 4 rings that separate them.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of stats that separate them too, but we don't need to go through all that right now. One's top 20, I believe, all time in scoring. The other one, has he ever scored double digits in an NBA game?
Come on.
Charles Barkley,
that's outrageous.
a.k.a. Mr. Triple Single, Draymond Green. Anyway, Caitlyn Clark. Fantastic job on a college season and her career. She plays like no woman I've ever watched in college basketball. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird were interviewed about Caitlyn Clark's impact on women's basketball, the college game, everything. They were giving her flowers, saying she's a tremendous college player. Then they were asked the question, along with one other star too as well. I'm drawing the name, but I know Taurasi and Sue Bird were in the interview. They asked about Caitlyn Clark going to the WNBA and how much of a star she was going to be. Diana Taurasi was like, whoa, it ain't going to be like that. She's going to come to the WNBA, you know, she's going to be playing with some real high-level women who have been playing professional basketball for a while. So she's going to learn. She's going to learn. A lot of like hate and animosity from people
listen,
kind of reporting back on those comments.
Clear jealousy, right? And let me break it down for you, and here's why. In the NBA, right?
I think it's gamesmanship, but go on.
No, it's not game. It's jealousy and hate, right? And here's why. In the NBA,
you also think Draymond Green's better than Charles Barkley.
See, you won't even let me finish, right?
Ahead,
I'm about to give Barkley some credit, right?
Go ahead.
In the NBA, it's about scoring a ton of points and being the man, right?
I agree.
Dropping 20, 25, 30 points a game, right? However, in women's basketball, it's more of a team's game, right? You pass, you assist, right? Like there's no one star, right? The star is the collective brand.
Fair.
That for the most part, that is how the WNBA is played. Caitlin Clark said, "Bump that. I'm gonna shoot from this half court. I am the woman, and I'm about to drop 33 a game and carry Iowa to the national championship game twice." So again, greatness, the greatest versus the most influential, right? Now, look, is she a star? Did she carry Iowa? Did she fall short? Is she great? 100%. Now, some of these WNBA players, maybe they could have scored 25, 30 points a game, but they didn't. Right? They didn't.
Fair.
Caitlin did.
Yep.
So there's that jealousy. And because Caitlin did, she got the bag from State Farm and all these other sponsors.
I would say on the other side of that, though, somebody like a Diana Taurasi who played for the Blue Blood Classic in UConn, she might have given up some stats just because she was playing with such a level of talent
that's her
around
problem.
her career. No,
That's her problem.
All I'm saying, though, is that
But that's where the hate is coming from.
from the statistical measurement standpoint, her stats and other girls, especially ones who played for UConn, their stats might not quite measure up to the
Now,
level.
again,
of
now here's how you separate things, right? You have, Caitlin Clark. She scored a lot of points. No championship.
Yeah.
Right? You got Taurasi,
they
right?
shouldn't be jealous, too, because at the end of the game, she's bringing more attention to women's basketball, period.
Yeah, listen, she's going to raise the bag for everyone, yes. But however, listen, to your point, right? Charles Barkley is a more skilled basketball player than Draymond Green.
He's better.
However,
You can just say better.
when you are running a team game, the outcome must matter. And
agree.
Draymond's Green impact and influence on them winning a championship is the difference between Barkley and
But when Draymond's the best-
Draymond. However, my point is Taurasi, right, is Draymond, right, had impacted them winning
she was the best
multiple
player.
championship. Yes, she was the best player. Yeah. However, Caitlin is a more skilled player because she was dropping 33, but she wasn't able to go all the way.
I don't even know if
That's
it's so
why
much-
there's an argument that if she did win, you can argue with one, she could have been the greatest of all time, even though there's other women with multiple. She's not even in the conversation because she has none.
So again, here's what I'm going to say to the whole thing that you're talking about with skill. Skill, I think, is like somewhat subjective. It's kind of like in the eye of the beholder who thinks someone is better, especially when you have two people that are good at similar things, especially in a sport like basketball. I think it's more with Caitlin Clark, the way she plays, like her style overall of play. She's a little bit physical. She's a stronger girl. She can take girls to the rack and go score and hoop, but then she's also hitting like logo threes. You give her an inch and bang, she's dropping threes from like all over. Her game, again,
It's more
we talked
exciting.
about this. Yeah, it's more exciting. Like there's just, again, viewership matters, right? And for whatever reason, this girl's style of play has attracted more people to the college women's scene than we've ever seen previously.
However, time out.
Sure.
Let's give Angel Reese some credit, right? Because without,
Angel Reese.
you got a hero, but you need a quote unquote villain.
Sure.
Right? And last
Shade,
year,
you can't see me. I got you.
right? And again, there's a lot, right? You're bringing up all the layers of it, right? Because last year, right, Caitlin was dropping all these points, right? Hitting the, what's the wrestler name? Right? John Cena, right? That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, she was disrespecting the game a little bit because I can't remember her name right now, the South Carolina guard that locked her down in the championship game the prior year, she waved her off.
It's not Bucher, is it?
Right? I don't think so.
I feel like that's another team. But go on.
And said like, oh, you can't shoot threes. I'm not even going to guard you. I'm not even going to pay attention to you, right? And so other, right, players like an Angel Reese felt like, nah, you can't disrespect another one of us, another woman athlete like that, even if she can't shoot threes like you.
Yeah.
All right? So now it's Iowa LSU last year, and guess what? LSU took that personal, right? Iowa expected to win, wanted to win. They were their favorite, but LSU took it personal because wanted to send a message to her like, no. You ain't going to disrespect the game like that just because you could drop a lot of points. LSU locked it down, right? LSU was more hungry. Angel Reese took that victory, and now all of a sudden, all the smoke Caitlin was talking last year, Angel just came with the same energy, right? And then she got all the hate. Why am I bringing this up? Here's the storyline. Here's the good versus evil, right? All of a sudden, Angel wins, and now everyone is hyping up Caitlin. Now you could do it again. Come back, right? Now she comes back. Now think about it, right? There's no John Cena this year, right? She's all about business, carries her team again. Now here's her apex, plays LSU, takes the game from LSU, right? Vindicated themselves, right? Now, because remember, Iowa knocked out South Carolina last year.
Okay.
So Iowa's happy that they beat LSU and got their revenge.
Sure.
But guess who they weren't paying attention to? South Carolina, and all South Carolina wanted was revenge, right? And
people
they
should have
got
been
it
paying attention to them. They were undefeated.
because, and I'll find the woman's name, but she locked down Caitlin Clark. That's the same late woman that she disrespected last year that was super motivated. So South Carolina had one goal to win the national championship, but it was so much sweeter for them because they took down Caitlin in Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always sweet when you can go get that revenge from a previous year's matchup. And that's always good storytelling, too, as well. I think that's why the game got so much attention, too, as well. That, along with Caitlin Clark being so popular. As far as Taurasi and Sue Bird's comments, you look at his jealousy. I kind of look at it as some gamesmanship. I think they're more or less just saying, like, listen, we respect you. We see you out here, you know, doing the damn thing on the college level. But just know you ain't going to come in and walk all over us like that. I mean, there's some levels to this. I remember something very similar, actually, when LeBron was coming, because he was the last guy before they changed the rule to where you had to do minimum 1 year in college. So he was the last guy to go straight from high school to the pros. But I remember a ton of NBA players sitting there talking about, when everyone was talking about, is this the next guy? Is this the next MJ? Yada, yada, yada. There were tons of NBA players that were very similar to, like, Taurasi and Sue Bird in the respect where they were just like, no rookie's going to come in and dominate the league like that. And to be fair, LeBron came in his rookie year. You could see the flashes, but we didn't know that he was going to turn into what he turned into 2 years from that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gamesmanship. On the other side, we're giving the ladies all their flowers. Got to throw out love, too, to the UConn men's side of things. They beat Purdue 75-60. They win their 6th national title in their program's history. You know, obviously, UConn is one of the many blue bloods, okay, obviously, on the NCAA men's side. This kind of just solidifies themselves as one of those kind of powerhouse programs.
Yeah.
They were great all year. They were a favorite coming into the tournament, so, I mean, it's no shock. Shout out to you, too. You called it.
Picked them
right?
from the beginning.
We were both wrong on Purdue, though, because I was saying
shekels.
Purdue wasn't even going to make it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, no,
and
listen.
they made it all the way to the final. So shout out to them and Zach Edey on a tremendous season
right?
as
Like
well.
really, you know, again, they had some redemption, right? And so that was nice to see from
Absolutely.
Purdue. But like I said, all year, all tournament long, UConn was about business. They were the most experienced team. They were the most coached and prepared team. And from start to finish, they were all about business, and they handled it. They expected to win. They expected to be in the national championship game, and they expected to beat Purdue. So I think they had one of the greatest seasons of all time. I think their team is going to be remembered forever for what they did. I mean, they beat every team by roughly 15 points or more per game. And I'm so excited for UConn, right? You know, Hurley's a Jersey guy, and they're doing
His
something
son's
special
on the team,
right
too.
now. His
Dribbled
son's
out
on
the
team.
final seconds for
every game in the of the tournament, right?
Yep.
So, you know, shout out to UConn, right? They right now are
That's Bobby Hurley, right? That's coaching them, former NBA player. Was it Bobby or is it Mark?
No, that was the dad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's the head coach, though, right?
I gotta look that up.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway,
Gotcha.
What's it called? I don't know first names, but no, UConn is the true blue blood, right?
Absolutely.
Of college sports right now, and it's nice to see that he's not running to Kentucky, right? You know, Dan Hurley. Thank you.
Hurley. I'm sorry.
There is a Bobby Hurley though, but like,
there is.
But it's Dan Hurley.
There's brothers.
So, but again, nice to see and like seemed like a loyal guy. Now, here's the thing: UConn, pay that man. Pay that man.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Yes, you just gave him a raise when he won the first one. He won back to back. So you got to redo that contract.
That's right. That is back to back. Yeah.
So you gotta bump that up. So shout out to UConn. Super excited for them.
Thoughts on Zach Edey at the next level? What do you think?
So listen, I think he's going to face some challenges, but this is the scenario.
A little bit of a throwback in terms of his style of play.
But this is the scenario that I think he could thrive, right? If he falls to the late first round, I would love to see him end up with the Warriors.
Okay.
And here's why, right? You put him in the middle, surrounded by Steph, Clay, Kuminga, right? And Pozlowski, right? All shooters. Podziemski, thank you. All shooters, right? And all of a sudden now you got a big man in the middle with a Draymond Green that can dominate.
Would you say, though, they somewhat kind of tried that experiment with James Wiseman a couple of years ago? It doesn't seem to quite fit their style.
But here's the thing. They messed up with Wiseman because they should have drafted LaMelo Ball, right? Now, you're not... Remember, there was supposed to be more upside on the offensive side for Wiseman. You're literally the purpose to draft Edey would be rebounding, blocking, and to have a big body to hold up against the Jokic.
I just don't think they're going to be in a position to draft him, though, because I would assume if he drafts, he's going in the top 10.
Well, so that's the debate, right? Now, it is a weak NBA draft. They're saying he could be a top 14 lottery pick potentially, but if he's not a top 14, they're saying he might not even go in the first round.
Interesting.
So my thing is, if he is
crazy, though, they go all the way to the finals and he doesn't even get drafted.
Again, athletically, he doesn't necessarily transition.
But didn't he like 7'2" or 7'3"? Like he's like
a big
7'4". Dude.
Yeah, he's like 7'4", right? But that's the thing.
Like I said, old school, more plotting type player.
But you surround him with a Steph, a shooter, right? They need a big body. I think that's the perfect scenario. So I compare him to like a Gobert, right? Not as athletic, but a similar style.
Seems much more offensive oriented too than he is a defensive player. But I hear you.
Yeah, so that's the scenario that I think Edey could be successful. Or and to me, his ceiling, right, is Hartenstein on the Knicks.
Interesting.
Right? So that's what I think his NBA career
I think he'd have to lose a little bit of weight just so he could move a little bit more.
He would have to increase his athleticism 100%.
It's decent, all right? The one thing when I look at Zach Edey and play, and it's I'm not going to act like I'm an expert or whatnot, but like his game, the most difficult part of translation that I see is how perimeter-oriented the game has become now. Like he's such a big, heavy-footed dude. I could see him struggling a lot with all these spread-out schemes where the 5 is getting kind of pulled further and further away from the basket because we're not in the era anymore where 5s. Joel Embiid and like Jokic, they're throwbacks. I mean, they're kind of somewhat of a dying breed. And even them, they can still somewhat maneuver and play a little bit away from the basket. Okay, but a lot of these guys now...
But you can't teach size, right? You can't teach size. He has that. You can teach defense. He knows the drop coverage
defense is just effort and attitude.
Again, right? So again, if he can increase his, mobility, side-to-side movement, right? Then he can get out there a little bit better. He's young enough. He is athletic, right? But he needs more athleticism, right, to really be successful in the NBA. And I think that's where the transition is going to be difficult. But if he ends up on a team that has shooters, right? Because again, you're talking about it on the defensive side. I'm talking about it on the offensive side.
Sure, no, he can present problems
in the middle,
himself,
right? And almost run a triangle offense, right? Where you got 2 shooters on the wing and him in the middle. Mm-hmm. And remember, he's good around the basket offensively.
They have to work on his passing a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, all things that could it'll be fascinating to see what happens with him. I'm interested to see it.
And the Warriors need size.
They definitely do. Let's move it over now to the NBA, okay? So we still have a ton of scenarios that have to play out. Things are starting to lock and come much more into form. The East is kind of strange right now because now all of a sudden you have the Bucks or the Knicks could end up. The Bucks, the Knicks, or the Cavs. Hell, even the Magic, that's kind of a long shot there a little bit. But Bucks, Knicks, or Cavs over these next, I think there's
2 games left.
2 or 3 games left. Yeah. If the Knicks win out and the Bucks lose one of those games, the Knicks now take the 2 seed.
Is that so?
That is so.
Okay.
Because I think the Knicks actually have 3 games left.
Have the tie. Okay. Yeah. The tiebreaker. Okay.
And the Knicks would end up, I believe, with a tiebreaker.
Now, see, if I'm the Knicks, I want to stay in the 3rd spot, right? Because then I'll end up playing in Indiana, right? Versus Milwaukee, right now, the way things are shaping up, would probably play the 76ers in the first round, right? Giannis got hurt.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, the East is wide open.
I don't know if I want that matchup if I'm Milwaukee too, with an injured Giannis too, which we also have to talk about. That's a huge shakeup in the playoffs.
Huge injury.
As well.
Now, here's the thing: the calf strain that he has is extremely similar to what Durant had
just before tearing the Achilles.
The only difference is Giannis' strain is higher than Durant. And they did an MRI, and there's structurally no damage to the Achilles.
The problem with that, though, is if it's higher, that means it's closer to the knee, too. So, I mean, that's the compensation issues.
Yeah. But he's been beat up all year, right?
Sure.
So I think he needs some rest, but this is the worst time for this particular injury.
Yeah. So as far as the East goes, I mean, again, you still have some seeding that's got to be figured out. But it's more or less, I would say that it looks like the Cavs, the Magic, and the Pacers are locked into their seeds. They're going to have 4, 5, and 6. Philly could get themselves into that position. I mean, again, we'll just see. We'll play it out. The one series that we know we have as a definite, okay? And I'll be honest with you right now. This is going to be, I mean, I don't care how the other ones break down. This is going to be the best series in the first round. You're going to have the Los Angeles Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. We talked about this last week, and you and I both agreed that we liked the Mavericks in this series.
I do.
Did you watch that game the other night? It was the Clippers versus the Suns.
Mm-hmm. Well, when the Clippers went up 30-4,
it was 35-4 at one point in that game. Now, here's what I will say.
No, Kawhi
That's
Leonard.
The Suns. They don't have the level of physicality necessarily that the Mavericks do, especially when they don't have Nurkic. Even with Nurkic, they're not an overall physical type team. They're much more run and gun, athleticism, perimeter oriented. But that game made me kind of look at the Suns a little bit differently. Like, if you're going to get beat up like that just out of pure physicality, I'm sorry, you can't win an NBA title. You have to be able to win rock fights.
I think the Suns have been saving for the NBA playoffs, right? So I think they're just fighting to get that number 6 slot, right? I think that's where their head's at. That's where their focus is. And I think you're going to see more defensive effort come the NBA playoffs. However, my concern with the Clippers is that injuries –
Kawhi didn't even play that night, too.
Kawhi's
got a little injury right now.
And
that's the only reason I'm picking the Mavericks.
Right, exactly.
If the Clippers were 100% healthy, I'd probably take them.
Can you trust James Harden as well in the playoffs, right? So there's a lot of issues there versus Kyrie. Look at Kyrie. All of a sudden now, him and Luka figured out how to play together.
Sure.
Kyrie is thriving.
And they got some size.
They brought in some
Mavericks
size.
Have
they
an ability
fixed their
to play
deficiencies
multiple ways.
Right? P.J. Washington. He's
P.J. Washington,
really
Daniel
good.
Gafford. Yep.
And guess what? Jason Kidd is coaching nicely.
Doing
right?
a great job.
So I like everything that's going on in that matchup. And to me, Dallas is a clear favorite and is going to win. Now, it'll probably go six games.
I think that series goes 7. Personally,
but I think Dallas is going to take it. The only reason why I'm not going to say it's going to go 7 is because I think the Clippers will falter.
Well, again, if the Clippers stay healthy, I think it goes 7. I'm still going to take Dallas, but I think it's going to be a fantastic series. But I'm with you. Let's say somebody gets hurt, more than likely Kawhi, just given his history. Kawhi is out. I mean, 6. I would have the Mavericks probably in 6 games. Again, I just think it's their... I will tell you the one X factor in that series. When Luka goes to the bench, or if it's a mix of Kyrie, Russ coming off the bench could be a huge X factor in that series because I don't think Dallas necessarily going to have the guys in their second unit to go and stop a guy like a Russell Westbrook.
Look out for Tim Hardaway Jr., right? You know,
okay. They're going to have to figure out defensively what they do.
With this new setup, right, he's a little lost, right? He's not getting as much offensive attention.
Yep.
But he's a guy that could put up threes and really score and really attack that second.
Yeah, I mean, and again, too,
I think he'd be the X factor.
Yeah, no, listen, I think that's a decent point, too, as well. I would just look at the Clippers largely. It's just... There's too many like what ifs and things that have to kind of work out perfectly for me to really put a bunch of stock in them. Although I will say there was a time when they were fully healthy at one point. They look like a team that could have even given the Nuggets a challenge at one point this season. I just haven't liked where it's trended. And also Tyronn Lue has the added challenge of kind of figuring out the bonus of playoff minutes between Westbrook and Harden.
Size and skill, the Clippers are the best on paper.
Sure.
Problem is availability is the most ability that's there.
And they're a good defensive team too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I just don't see it. I was a believer in that stretch, but James Harden, you can't trust him. I think there are some issues between Kawhi and PG and just staying healthy and playing and winning.
Well, we'll just see. But listen, that is all the time we have for segment number 2. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to Run It Back on segment number 3. What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined, of course, by my co-host, Mr. DaCosta. And this is the final segment 3 of Run It Back. Beautiful people, please don't forget when you're done watching this video, or even right now as you watch this part of the segment, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're looking for those 5-star reviews.
Please tell them that championships matter.
Major platforms. Oh, my God. That's
championships matter.
They do, but they're not the end-all, be-all in the argument. All things should go into the argument. But I digress. I know I'm going to win that. Again, just go on the internet and look up top power forwards of all time. Just go look up top 5s and top 10s.
I'm a man of the people.
And see where Barkley
I'm a man
ranks.
of the people. And the people is going to tell you that rings matter.
They
rings
are.
Matter.
They're also going to tell you that
matter.
Charles Barkley's better than Draymond Green.
One has no rings.
Hell,
one
if
has
somebody
4
wants
rings.
to do the research, Chris Webber's better than Draymond Green. Hell, my boy Dennis Rodman's better than Draymond Green.
Chris Webber has
but
none.
He doesn't have any rings, man. How can he even be on the list? Like, I don't get it.
Exactly. What are we talking about here?
I know. Again,
Dennis Rodman has 5.
I'll go right
so
back.
he could be on the list. He's in the room with Draymond.
So Derek Fisher.
He's in the room with Draymond.
Is a better all-time point guard than Chris Paul.
Listen, move
You
on.
gonna stand
move
on that?
Listen,
Exactly. Because you realize then it sounds silly.
Listen.
Play-in scenarios. Let's start on the East, okay? As it stands right now for the play-in, you'd have the Sixers hooking up with the Miami Heat. You get the Bulls against the Hawks. So let's play out that first one. Sixers and Heat in a one-game scenario. Who you got?
I think the Sixers are going to finish 7.
I agree. I think the Sixers will beat the Heat in that one-game scenario.
And I think the Heat want Boston.
I don't think the Heat really, again, it's not that they're going to not try, but I think the Heat at the end of the day, they know they just got to win one of these 2 games, and they like their shot once come playoff time because they always gear up. They ratchet up their intense team. I'd argue Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the NBA right now. He's awesome. Gets the most out of his guys. But I'll take Philly finishing out at the 7 seed. Miami then will go and hook up with Chicago or Atlanta, the winner of that game. Either way, I think Miami beats either one of those teams.
Here's the thing. Trae Young has come back, right? So it's interesting to see. I think the Hawks are going to beat the Bulls, and then it would be Miami and the Hawks, and that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah. I'd take Miami, though.
Agreed.
I'd take Miami in the game. Especially with Trae Young just coming back, too. That now goes to the western side of the playoffs, and you and I were just talking about this during the break. This is a somewhat somber thought. Based on the standings right now, guys, we're going to have to face the facts here unless something crazy happens in these next 2 to 3 games. It looks like the Lakers or the Warriors both could be missing the actual playoff series once we get into the series. Obviously, they're going to be in a play-in. As it stands right now, we're going to have the Phoenix Suns against the Sacramento Kings. Then we'll have the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, you and I a week ago both said that we liked the Lakers in this matchup. You still standing strong on that?
I do. I know they just played the other night. No AD.
Got whooped.
Warriors look good.
Yeah.
I think they shot almost 60% from the field. But you know what? In a one-game scenario, I think all of the size of the Lakers, would dominate.
Yeah.
It's going to be more defense intensity. My hope is that the Suns move up to the 6th spot and the Lakers can move up to the 8th spot. And there's an opportunity.
Which they still do have a possibility.
All 3 of them could make it, but only time will tell. And I'm just that's me just being a fan, but reality says one of them aren't going to be in it.
Listen, I'm hanging on a thread here to still go with the Lakers because it's just sometimes some of the lineups that Darvin Ham runs out there for the Lakers really puzzle me. The guy I've talked about, Jason Timpf, has detailed this all year on his Hoops Tonight podcast. The lineups are just really confusing. I mean, this is a team that won the in-season tourney, and then all of a sudden he's sitting guys like Rui Hachimura and they're one, if not 2 of their best guards. Like sometimes they would start D'Lo and sit Austin, vice versa. They were bringing in guys like Cam Reddish, Taurean Prince, and Jared Vanderbilt to like go and start the games, which I have no problem with some of those players collectively getting minutes here and there, but like playing starter level minutes, like Taurean Prince, this is no disrespect to him. He's not a starting caliber player in the NBA.
But
solid off the bench.
But they all got time during the season, right? So they're seasoned,
So you're saying
right?
the
To
chemistry
go in, exactly, to go
and
in.
being
And he's
prepared.
going to know what matchup, what strings to pull, right, within each particular scenario. So I think that was the, science behind it.
I'll take the Lakers in the matchup for one reason and one reason only. The Warriors continue to struggle anytime AD faces them because defensively he makes so many problems for them. And when AD locks in offensively, they really don't have anybody that can guard him. Draymond can do it for like a stretch, maybe a game, but over the course of a series, no, they'll find a way to match up and exploit AD's size advantage over most of those guys. And his offensive skill set is just better than anybody that on the other side can go and stop him. So I'll take the Lakers, but man, the Lakers I really think blew a huge opportunity to get just in front of the Kings there and essentially avoid a matchup with the Kings, who has had their number all year long. And who knows, maybe you'd only have to play the Warriors in that last or final game.
Mm-hmm.
That sets up on the other side, at least on paper, you're going to have the Suns versus the Kings. If it stays that way, unless it's the Pelicans or the Kings, but it's the Suns right now. I like the Suns. I think it's two very similar teams. They're not overly physical. They're much more reliant on perimeter type style and play, and a little bit more speed. And I think the Suns will just simply outflank them in that regard with their level of star talent.
Yeah.
So I like the Suns there. So that would finish out there with the Suns grabbing the 7 seed and Lakers would come in at the 8. So interesting thing. But we'll be back obviously next week to somewhat recap because we'll have an idea. I think the play-ins will start next week.
Yep.
Correct?
Week.
All right. So the play-ins will start next week. So we'll have a much better idea then after those couple of games. And then, okay, we can actually do like a real playoff breakdown, like analyze each of the series because we'll finally have these seedings decided here because there's still so much that's in like a state of flux.
Yeah, I'm sure you want to change your Bucks championship pick,
Yeah, I do. I've been trying all year to stick with them because I'm a man of consistency. I really try to stick with a pick when I have it. But I mean, the Giannis,
or a bad argument,
the Giannis injury. I mean, I never have those. So
and now you're just lying.
The Giannis injury combined with it's all season. It just seems like the Giannis and Dame thing still hasn't worked out quite the way I thought it would. And I'll tell you something. For a guy who is a big fan of Giannis, I have to put some of the blame on him. Because you kind of held the Bucks' feet to the fire in numerous situations. I mean, the coach that left before the season even started. Mm-hmm. Then all the reports about how he got Adrian Griffin fired. Okay, when the Bucks had a very good record under, they have a losing record under Doc now. Now I'm not even putting it on Doc. Okay, I'm going to put a lot of this blame on Giannis right now because it's like they brought Dame. They acquiesced to your request. They brought in another high-level superstar player. Did you not think that you were going to somewhat have to like adapt your game and move off the ball more? Dame's an on-the-ball player. That's what he kind of has to be his most effective, okay? Yeah. It seems that Giannis still kind of has to be like the guy, and he still wants the ball in his hands a good portion of the times. And then they kind of like he would let Dame at parts of the season kind of take over in fourth quarters. But I just felt like that offense, for it to really reach its peak, needed to run through Dame, okay? And I don't know, for whatever reason, the coaching staff could not get Giannis to kind of go to that. And Giannis is trying to validate his greatness too at the same time. You've got that title now, but now he's trying to get himself into that upper pantheon of all-time greats by getting multiple, right? So
multiple what?
Multiple championships.
Okay. Yeah. Championships matter. I thought so.
So, yeah, I'm going to have to say if I were picking NBA Finals, though, right now, who I think is going to be there, as much as this pains me to say, and I love my New York Knicks. I love them. I just think they're a little bit away from being a finals threat yet. I'd have to say it's going to be the Celtics and the Nuggets right now. That would be my pick.
Can't argue.
My pick. So, on another note, we're going to go some rapid fire topics here. Topics. Sorry, losing my train of thought. Shohei Ohtani. We spoke about his interpreter and the allegations that happened. Okay, he is setting up to plead guilty. I believe on multiple charges. I think any of the charges can range anywhere from fraud or terms of theft. The fact that he's getting ready to plead guilty this quickly sets up obviously a more lenient sentence because obviously the criminal justice system always wants to try to reward somebody who at least cooperates with the authorities, okay, and tries to speed up the criminal justice process. Yeah. The one thing I will say is when you read some of these articles and an exchange and test between, it was Mizuhara, I believe is his last name. I'm drawing a blank on the first name, but we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Ipe, there you go, Ipe Mizuhara. And then the alleged bookie who's now involved too as well, Boyer, something like that. It's Bowyer. I'm just not quite 100% pronunciation. But a lot of texts back and forth between the two about the money exchange and now he's obviously been involved too as well, and he's got legal problems. But the one text that's got to kind of that was reported between the two was, yeah, I know you reported that you stole, and I know it's a cover. It's all bullshit, more or less indicating that Shohei Ohtani did in fact possibly know something about this, but he's saying that Ipe covered it up. But at least to Ipe's credit, Ipe's staying with that line of thought. Nope, this was my fault. I screwed it up, and I'm kind of done now. But give me your thoughts just on this whole thing.
Look, listen, at the end of the day, right, Shohei is too big of a star, and, someone's got to fall on the sword. And
so true.
Whether Shohei knew or not, at the end of the day, it is more beneficial.
He's on the Dodgers too. Just made it. Dodgers.
He was the interpreter.
No, Shohei's on the Dodgers. I just want to make sure.
Ohtani.
Okay.
Right. He, it is in everyone's best interest that, this comes to a quick resolution. Plus, here's the other thing. You don't really want to lie to the feds, right? Like, of all people and agencies to lie to, you don't want to lie to the feds because they're just going to, triple the charges in when you directly lie or make an investigation more difficult. So with that being said, he's pleading guilty. MLB can wrap this up and we can start to, move forward. So,
yeah. So, listen,
to your point, there's
it's just a lot of talk
sketchy,
back and forth.
A little sketchy.
It's definitely weird. And again, to your point, that's their big star. So the MLB, who's kind of already struggling for viewership and ratings, I'm not going to accuse you of anything. I'm just going to say they're going to do what they need to do to protect their star.
And Shohei's going to do what he's got to do to protect that $700 million.
Absolutely, man. Protect your money, boy. Now, shout out. Okay, we're going to talk a little baseball.
Them New York Yankees.
Shout out to the New York Yankees and their major league leading record of 10-3 right now. They're doing great right now. Highlighted by one of New Jersey's own, Anthony Volpe, a Del Barton grad, hitting .372 batting average right now. He's doing well. Giancarlo Stanton is the leader on the team right now with 4 home runs. Juan Soto, that the new arm that they brought out in center. This is right field, right? Center, right, left?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's playing, it says it right there. I'm an idiot. Juan Soto, the right fielder. Yes, okay. Leading the team with 12 RBIs. He's also leading the team in on-base percentage and hits. So...
And listen, he's also batting like 360. I know Volpe's batting like 370, but he's also batting like 360.
And again, it's also these numbers are somewhat, you're 13 games into the season. Yep. Like it's always tough to read the averages because some guys could start out hot. Baseball, because they play so many games, it all ends up kind of equaling out at the end. Yeah. I haven't paid attention much to the pitching staff. I do know the stud, though. The guy they got from the Astros, Cole, he's hurt.
Yeah,
he's hurt to start the year.
He's out for the first month. But listen, the fact that they're playing this well
without him, that's very encouraging.
And the fact that, like I said, Juan Soto, he's in a contract year.
Yep, playing well.
He's motivated, playing well, seems to fit comfortably in New York. So again, don't want to just be throwing out $400 million contracts.
Sure,
but right now he's living up to it and looking like he deserves it.
Now, did Aaron Judge get hurt?
No.
Not going to get hurt? All right. I'm just not seeing his stats for whatever reason, but I guess maybe they're listing it in a weird way.
Yeah, I think he's, 5 runs, 8 hits.
Oh, right. There he is. So Aaron Judge right now, he's off to a little bit of a slow start. He's at a 178 average. But again, like we said, it's early. Sometimes you just start off a little bit slow. He'll equal out. I think he'll get to his baseball card numbers when all is said.
Listen, that's a hell of a starting lineup, right? Between
their outfield too's got a bunch of cannons,
right? Exactly.
Yeah, they got guys who can throw, and I love outfielders with good arms because
Volpe,
Judge, to the plate.
Soto, and Stanton, like that combination, right at the start of the lineup is
killer. I
killer.
like the balance now of a little bit more power mixed with on base percentage. Guys that are hitting for contact, they're getting a little bit somewhat back to their roots if I had any criticism of the Yankees in the recent years, they've been so analytics/home run driven. And the thing about all that is you can run analytics all you want during the regular season, and it'll get you pretty good results. But analytics cannot account for the pressure and intensity rising during the postseason. And I think that's something that the Yankees have failed to do. So I'm still going to wait to reserve my overall judgment for how the Yankees perform if and when they make the postseason this year. But so far, heck of a start for them. And it's definitely better. This is one of the best starts they've had in recent years. Actually, I think the report was this was their best start. When they started off 6-0 or 7-0, I forget when they lost their first game. It was the best start since 1992. So good start for them,
Absolutely.
as opposed to recent trends. So we'll keep the baseball talk relevant, all right? Now, another little bombshell of a story, okay, / old man trying to stay relevant in the game. One Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. says he is open to the possibility of a late season comeback. Give me your thoughts on this.
Listen, he's the greatest. He's getting that itch, and guess what?
Most accomplished quarterback of all time.
But Patrick Mahomes, he's starting to climb up there. He's starting to look like he's going to be.
Do you think he's going to win one more Super Bowl?
If all of a sudden Brady comes back, jumps on the 49ers,
that's exactly where he's going,
wins another
too.
championship, all of a sudden.
And no one owns his rights, so he's like a free agent.
And listen, Tom Brady's about that smoke. So he could just show up on the Raiders and say, hey, Mahomes, he is a partial owner. That is correct.
I do have a quick question to you. Yes, he is a partial owner. But I have a quick question about this because, correct me if I'm wrong, he retired with 1 year left on his deal with the Bucs. Isn't that correct? He retired 1 year before the final year of his deal.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Don't quote me, but I'm almost positive he signed a 2-year extension with them, and then he retired before the last year.
But
the only reason I bring that up is because let's say that was in the cards of him making a late. I don't think he's going to, but let's say it was. Would this be similar to a Sean Payton situation where, remember, he stepped away for a year. He didn't want to coach.
Coaching
when he
is
came
a little
back,
different.
but he couldn't just go and coach for any team. It involved a deal. I'm wondering if there would be something where the Bucs technically still own his rights because of that 1 year.
Again, right? Whatever dead money should have been paid already.
Yeah.
It's been a full year, so
I gotcha.
He should have the flexibility to go wherever he wants. I just don't know all the nuances
Yeah.
of being fully retired.
And again, for all I know, he
year,
could just go wherever he
right?
wants.
And what the Bucs did with his contract,
Yeah.
and, just to create room or whatever the case is. So, but. If I had to guess, he can go wherever he wants.
Okay. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be fascinating. And if he went to the 49ers, I mean, wow.
Listen, if Brock Purdy got hurt
Or struggled
again, I
for
don't know about
whatever
struggle,
reason,
but
or
if he got hurt, I think they're making that phone call.
Interesting. You don't think if the Niners maybe started off like 3-5, 4-4, something like that, they don't start to think?
I think Kyle.
Because they still got to figure out long term if like Purdy is the guy that they're going to invest in for the future.
Yeah, and again, right?
And
you
they
talk
want to
about-
win a Super Bowl.
And you talk about consistency, right? So all of a sudden, get into the playoffs, then make that call to Tom Brady. Tom Brady doesn't want to play a full season.
No.
He just wants to come in.
If he can go in and clean up a little bit,
Yeah.
I will say this about Brady, and I've softened on him in my older age. As we know, I'm a big Peyton Manning fan, so it took me a long time to finally just leave my level of like hate aside for Brady and appreciate the greatness because he is great.
Appreciate the rings.
But I'm going to say this, Brady. You think you're slick. I saw that little quote about you and the new defensive rules, right? It's talking about how, gosh, they're making the games. The NFL's got to watch all these new rule changes, man. They're making it to where the defense can't do anything and the offense can have the only impact of the game. You weren't complaining when they were changing all those low hits and rules to the quarterback, though, while you were playing and benefiting from it. Were you, big guy? So all I'm saying is you think you're slick, but you benefited from a lot of those offensive favoritism type rules as well. So don't be acting all slick like now all of a sudden you want the game to be more physical.
But that's why he
play
can
more.
come back, because the game is less physical.
That's fair. That's fair. But I just think it's kind of funny that he's saying that and he's not. Tom Brady is anything but an idiot. He knows that he benefited from many of those rules as well.
Absolutely.
It's an offensive game. People want to see points. This is kind of the sign of the times now.
Yeah.
Dak, Dallas, you were really excited about this topic. I mean, I think it's interesting too. And the rumor mill flying around is don't be surprised if Dallas is in the market to possibly go and draft a quarterback, being that this is Dak's final year on his deal.
Listen, I think Penix is really a wild card.
I love
and
Penix.
I think he can end up in with the Miami Dolphins. I think he could end up with the Cowboys. And I think
there's a lot of teams I could see him fitting in well with.
Where you have to give the Cowboys credit is that they've done an amazing job in their draft process.
Sure.
So if they do draft a quarterback, you got to sort of give them the benefit of the doubt that, they're going to make a solid pick. But if I'm Dak, right, again, for him, it's about making the bag, right? It's clear that Dak's not going to win a championship. He doesn't have that, that dog, that aggressiveness in him, right? I think he's more corporate. So for him, it's about getting that $250 million
corporate. I like that description.
Bag. And so for me, I think that's what's going to happen. And if I'm Dallas, right, I want to be like the Houston Texans.
Sure.
Right? I want a Stephon Diggs. I want a Nico Collins. I want a Tank Dell. I want to go get a rookie defensive end. So, again, do you keep Dak and lose Micah, right? Because you have to pay CeeDee Lamb. And if I'm CD, why not hold out, right? And make sure you can become a free agent and really get the bag.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think there's too much money to go around. There's not enough money to go around. And at the end of the day, it's better to reset with Dak.
Listen. You know me and how I approach the Dallas Cowboys, and I never miss an opportunity to go and throw some shade at Jerry Jones. But I'm actually going to give him a tremendous amount of credit because I got to tell you, he's doing the exact same thing I would do in this situation. Dak, you're going to get paid $60 million this year. So number one, you got nothing to complain about, okay? Go and enjoy that $60 million. I'm sure you're good with your money. It's not like you're going to be hurting right after this season, especially when you collect that $60 million. That's number one. Number two, why now? I've already given you one mega loaded extension where at that time you were the highest paid quarterback in the league. Why am I going to part of this game? And I think this is not just a lesson to Jerry. I think this is a lesson to a lot of GMs. A lot of these guys just go pay quarterback, right? Because it's so hard to go and find a franchise quarterback that they'd rather just go and pay one, even if maybe he's not quite that level that you need, as opposed to lose it and then go into the search of finding a new guy.
You cannot pay a good quarterback, great quarterback money.
Totally agree.
Right? So
but there's a lot of teams that do it. There's a lot of teams that do it. And I get it. It's a model. At the end of the day, they're businessmen. It's relevancy, put butts in the seats, and at least be able to find a way to win games. You're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. You can send that message to people, but the reality is it's very hard to go and win a Super Bowl, let alone trying to win one every year. But obviously, that's the stated goal. But to your point, you can't pay a good quarterback great money. And right now, Dak's put up some fantastic regular season stats. But at some point, and you're a guy, rings, winning matters. What has he done in the biggest games?
Nothing.
I mean, he might have just had one of his worst postseason games ever this last year as a favorite at home against the Packers, a team that most people didn't even think were going to make the playoffs, let alone come in and put a stomping on the Dallas Cowboys. And that's exactly what they did. And Dak, here's the thing. It's not just on Dak, right? The defense obviously didn't show up. They gave up, I think in that first quarter, they gave up a 75-yard drive, a 90-yard drive. So, I mean, the defense was at fault too. But Dak, that's the point of you making the $60 million. When the defense doesn't bring it, their A game, you're supposed to rise up and go and carry them, right? We've seen Patrick Mahomes down 24-0 in an AFC championship game, okay? Fast forward, all of a sudden, they were up 38-24, That's why you get the big bucks. You are paid that when not everything goes well, you have to rise above and just be great. You have to be a franchise quarterback. And I still don't think Dak has proven that he's amongst the elite quarterbacks or deserving of that type of money.
I think the market's going to dictate it because I don't see the team that's going to give him $60 million a year. Right?
I don't either.
I don't see the team that's going to give him $275 million a year. Right?
He should be making more like Baker money. My opinion.
No, a little bit more.
Maybe a little bit more.
I think he should be landing at around $44-45 million a year.
It's
Remember,
fair
Baker
though. Now I
got
think about it
33.
too, because Daniel Jones. So
Right.
I mean, he should be making more than that at least.
Exactly.
Even though I think Baker, if we're being fair, and I'm a Giants fan, if you look at Daniel Jones' career and you look at Baker's career, I think Baker is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Like he's shown it through multiple seasons, but yet he's kind of taking a bargain deal right now because he's still in kind of like the prove it, and he's in a good place for him too.
Exactly.
So the consistency, he's got a good surroundings around him. But I'm fascinated to see how it works out in Dallas. And listen, Dak, bet on yourself, man. But It's a put up or shut up year this year. You can't lay another egg at the end of the season. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of teams in the market's going to dictate to you what you're worth. And I wonder if this might somewhat create like a revolution of some GMs trying to refocus on business, where it's like, if we've only gotten so far with this quarterback, and it comes time that whether we're going to reset, maybe we'll take our chances and just go rebuild. Because again, look at what the Texans are doing. Look at the 49ers. I mean, there's another model and way for going to do it, and it doesn't have to take as long as you think. Now, crucial component, finding the quarterback where it all works around, but it's possible. There are other ways of going about it rather than just overpaying a good quarterback, to your point. Final topic here. NBA MVP. Who you got? The odds are coming out right now, and it seems Nikola Jokic is favored to go and win now. He's third.
Listen, I think Luka is doing something special, and out of emotions, I'd want to give it to him. But the Nuggets are about to have the number 1 seed. Again, the numbers that Jokic are putting up, he's the MVP.
Here's what I'll say. Most valuable player, meaning he's most valuable to his team. You take him off the team, and the team is simply not as competitive. When I look at the two rosters, the construction of both, and if I were to say, and this is splitting hairs, because I think both men are more than deserving of the word. You put up their stats, okay, how both their teams are performed, I get it. But I think Luka is slightly more valuable to his team to that point, okay, where if you took Luka off the Mavs, I don't even know if they're a playoff team. I think if you took Jokic off the Nuggets, I think they would be on the bottom half, like in that 8-9, but I think they would still be contending for a chance. So that's where I think the sum of all the parts in Denver are a little bit better than what Luka has around him. Because outside of Kyrie, who is a stud, it's a lot of like role players and a lot of less names. Jamal Murray is a very good player on Denver, and Denver just has a bunch of outstanding role players. Aaron Gordon has grown into a fantastic player in his own right. Michael Porter Jr. is a great shooter too as well, 15 to 20 points scoring type of guy. So I would give Luka the slight edge, but honestly, not mad either way if either one of them wins it.
Agreed.
So listen, folks, that wraps up this week's episode of Run It Back, but don't go too far because we'll be back next week again when we
run it back.
Run it back.